Would you let me inside your head? Would you let me inside your head? Would you let me inside your head? Would you?
Vocal chops, a type of sound that you probably got to know first by listening to some random EDM music that tries to make you feel euphoric while you are going to work you hate. A type of sound that doesn't sound like a vocal, but neither does it sound like a synthesizer. Actually, if you try out something more than in a typical vocal chop tutorial, that is just cutting a vocal and slapping a reverb along with delay, you might discover that working with vocals can bring a lot of fun, which is what I will try to prove in this tutorial. What will also make this video worth watching is some insight on where to get your desired vocals from, which will be the very first question I will answer now. Because how are you supposed to follow a vocal chop tutorial if you don't have any material to begin with? I will open a surprisingly long list of vocal sources, starting out with the most convenient ways, and in time we will move on to more unusual but also more original ones. The absolutely easiest way to obtain vocals is of course by using acapellas. That is a vocal track without the instrumental behind. The best quality acapellas can be found by looking for remix contests, regardless of whether they are currently open or they got closed a few years ago. For example, the EDMNations.com website has an archive of remix contests, and some of the vocal tracks are still downloadable. For more websites like that one, type in Google Remix Contest Archive and have fun browsing. Acapellas taken from remix contests will be always in WAV format, and usually they will be already equalized, compressed, and etc. Can't think of a more convenient way to get vocals. But this is some EDM, house, vocal crap about peace and love, plus it has a different tempo, and probably the vocals won't be in the key I'm looking for. The BPM difference can be minimized by either changing your project BPM or by pitching up or down your acapella a bit. Depending on the vocals, it can sound cool or not. If you are worried about the key of the vocals, either look enough to find a perfect vocal track for yourself, or start out a new project with the acapella and build your whole track around it. Regarding the lyrics, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Pow!
A slightly worse way to get acapellas from is to use websites like Looperman, Acapellas for You, or acapellas.eu. Even YouTube might have some hidden gems, but generally exploring these websites gives mixed results. Either the quality is going to be low, or you will hear hundreds of vocals like this one.
I was born with government cheese in my mouth, I spit it out.
If you do have some spare money though, you can save yourself some cringe and use services like Splice to get a nice variety of vocals. You can also buy some vocal sample packs or just pay someone to do the vocals for you. If you have friends that can sing, a 4-pack of beer will be enough. If you don't, try Fiverr or Upwork. Or Tinder, so you can have both singer and friend in one person. If you are broke like a typical artist, there are still some ways to get vocals from besides using uTorrent. With websites like AudioStrip, you can extract vocals from any track you wish. Just make use of 1 month free premium trial plan, drag the whole song into the window, and for the best results, use the wave output and the Max V4 algorithm. This is the vocal with instrumental.
I be the catalyst, battle is energizing, then arise and plot strategy. Those who not mad at me, son of
And this is the AudioStrip acapella.
I be the catalyst, battle is energizing, then arise and plot strategy. Those who not mad at me, son of what.
Similar work can be pulled off with the Isotope RX or even Virtual DJ. Very often speeches or movie samples will be more suitable for your project. So next time when you will be watching a TED Talk or Resident Evil movie, have an Audacity opened in the background to quickly capture any piece of speech you find musical.
Implore away.
Please. Please. You're all going to die down here.
Implore away.
Please. Please.
The last way of getting vocals would be by synthesizing it somehow. You can try your luck with websites like VoiceMaker or go old school and use a Speak VST for all robotic voice needs. After getting your vocals, probably the first thing you would like to do is to synchronize them with the beat. It's not always necessary. For example, if you want to use a piece of vocal for tops only, you can skip this step. But in my short project, I'd like to have some vocals with no topping as well. Initially, I planned to use the extracted vocal from a rap track.
I be the catalyst, battle is energizing, then I rise and
The tempo of the vocal track and the instrumental itself is equal to 89 ppm, where my Schranz beat is at 150 ppm. That's quite a difference, so when I play the vocals along with the Schranz kick,
I be the catalyst, battle is energizing, then I rise and fly strategy.
it clearly sounds off. Now for more clarity, I will add the instrumental as well, so you can hear how off-sync the vocals are.
I be the catalyst, battle is energizing, then I rise and fly strategy. Those who not mad at me, son, I want them why you red-handed, but
To fix that, we want to find the beginning of the vocals, and once again the instrumental can be useful there. Make a slicer and transpose the vocal track without the warping. What does warping do is that it keeps the vocal lengths the same regardless of its pitch. So without it, you can make the vocals faster and higher or slower and lower to synchronize them with the, in our case, Schranz kick.
I be the catalyst, battle is energizing, then I rise and fly strategy. Those who not mad at me, son, I want them why you red-handed, running off.
These vocals when pitched down are kind of okay. Depending on the effects chain, they could fit the project or not. For example, these are the same vocals, but with the effects chain I will explain very soon. In the end, I decided to strip a vocal from another track with a tempo slightly closer to the tempo of my Schranz beat. It's 84 ppm, so you might think now, how is that closer to 150 ppm than the previous vocal track? Well, if we multiply the vocal track tempo by 2, because to fit the same vocal track inside of a Schranz track, we need 2 times more bars than in the case of the rap instrumental, we will see that 168 ppm is closer to 150 ppm than 178 ppm. Because of that smaller difference, I don't need to pitch down or up the vocals that hard to sync them with the Schranz beat. This keeps the vocals sounding more natural. Let's see what creative we can do with the vocals, but before that, let me advertise myself quickly and just say that if you wish to have other sound design or music production subjects explained in such an easy and practical way, consider going onto my website to learn more about my private music production lessons. Free consultations are available as well. In the beginning, I mentioned going above the typical processing that very often involves delay. The problem with the delay is that even though it sounds good on vocals, it's a very generic thing to do that doesn't add any surprise. And here's the effect that is going to change that. The Soundtoys Crystallizer is a delay effect that can not only change the pitch of the repetitions, but it can also reverse them. I will temporarily increase the mix control so you can hear better what does the output sound like. The pitch control shifts the echo up or down. The splice sets the length of each repetition. The lower the slice, the faster the reversed echo is going to catch up with the dry vocal. You can add a time offset to the delay with the delay knob. The recycle is nothing more but a feedback control for the delay. The larger the recycle value, the more echo repetitions you get. To keep the sound clean, keep it close to 0. At last, we do have the mix knob that naturally blends the echo with a dry vocal track. Now let's switch the echo to forward mode just to show you how much more interesting the vocals got once the echo repetitions got reversed. If you don't have the Crystallizer plugin, you can create a similar effect with stock Ableton effects, duplicate the vocal track and reverse it. If you shift your reversed vocal and loop it, as I'm doing it on the screen, it's like you are using the delay control in the Crystallizer effect. If you add on the copied channel the shifter, you can transpose the sound up or down, as if you are using the pitch knob in the Crystallizer. To simulate the splice control, aka the echo repetition length, use a combination of utility and LFO. Set the LFO curve to the square wave and set the modulation range to make the vocals rhythmically quieter, not faded away. Because the Crystallizer is capable of ping-pong delay, you can duplicate the LFO and set a different modulation range and map it to the balance knob in the utility. To mimic the recycle control, add a simple delay effect in right after the shifter. Here's the final effect.
Open up your eyes and open up your eyes and open up your eyes and open up your eyes and.
To blend the effect with the dry sound as if you were using the mix control, adjust the volume level of the channel with the effects added.
Open up your eyes and 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 open up.
The second effect in my chain is the shifter. Pitch shifting is also a common thing for vocal chops and vocal processing, and shifter has two ways of doing that. The plugin in the pitch mode acts as the classic transpose knob with the warping enabled. It means that if I, for example, pitch the vocals up,
Open up your eyes and
Open up your eyes and open up your eyes and open up your eyes.
they will sound unnatural because Ableton tries to keep the length of the vocals the same even though they have been pitched up. This glitching side effect can be useful sometimes though, so if you'd like to control it, use the window parameter.
Open up your eyes and 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 open up your eyes and.
Turning on the white switch and turning the fine control can add a nice stereo whiteness to the sound.
Open up your eyes and 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 open up.
The remaining controls in case of vocal processing are useless. You probably are not going to use the LFO on the pitch, right? Shifter also offers the frequency shifter pitching that sounds far more eerie and unnatural. All the controls besides the chorus one work in the same way as in the pitch mode. The chorus, however, instead of pitching the sound up or down while keeping the harmonics relationship intact, simply increases all the frequencies in the signal by a fixed offset. That's the source of an unnatural sound.
open up your eyes and 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 open up your eyes and.
The third effect in the chain is the tremolo made by Soundtoys Tremolator. I use it for that typical rhythmic gate effect. Let's increase the tremolo speed. And pick a different modulation shape to tweak the rhythm itself. The fill knob shifts the initial phase of the LFO and groove alters the swing for an extra rhythm. We can set both of these by playing the kick drum in the background. The accent makes the sound quieter or louder in the beginning of each bar. The depth is like a dry-wet control for the tremolator, and it tells by how many decibels the volume will be rhythmically decreased. If you don't own the Tremolator plugin, you can use once again the utility and LFO combination to substitute that plugin a bit. Before we move on to the chopping, let's give you a few more suggestions on how to creatively manipulate the vocals. A comp filter is great for adding metallic resonances to the vocal. Instead of using Ableton's shifter, a format shifter effect can be used for a whole different way of pitching the vocals up or down.
Open up your eyes and open up your eyes and open up your eyes and open up your eyes.
A vocoder can blend greatly the noise to the vocals, or make the vocals sound robotic. Let's export the processed vocals and load them up into a drum rack. In the simpler window, select the Slice tab. By default, the vocals will be sliced by transients. This is a very typical setting, but it's going to make each slice sound like a plug sound. In opposite to most vocal chop tutorials, I would suggest slicing by beats instead. Changing the division parameter will change the number of slices. Of course, more slices doesn't automatically mean your vocal chops are going to sound more creative or better. Personally, I like the default and generic setting of 1/4 of the bar. It's simple and fun. Right-click the waveform and select the Slice to New MIDI track to chop the sample. This is going to create a new channel where each slice is put on another pad in the drum rack. All that's left is to create a new MIDI clip and sequence a cool rhythm. Aside from just simple sequencing, you can also play slices on top of each other for more complexity, as I did here with the final melody. I can modify individual slices as well. To make the rhythm smoother, I can reverse some of the slices. The pitch of individual slices can be altered too. Now, to keep each slice length the same, I would recommend turning on the warping option. Some of the parameters values can be applied to all the slices with a single mouse click. For example, I can right-click the transpose knob and select the copy value to siblings to pitch down the whole melody. Unfortunately, the warping has to be turned on manually for each slice afterwards. We do have a chopped vocal, so all that's left is to mix it a bit with the kick and percussion. The first effect is going to be a classic reverb. I want to put the reverb in a parallel processing chain because there's a cool sound design trick I'd like to show you. The dry chain will pass the vocal as it is, but in the reverb chain, I use a reverb plugin with the dry volume level turned to 0. For a cleaner sound, I would recommend keeping the reverb lengths under 5 seconds. In this plugin, the diffusion and size, the parameters that usually shape the reverb, and many other plugins don't change the sound much here. So I can skip adjusting these and move on to the pre-delay and width. The pre-delay knob can delay in time the reverb, making it appear a bit later than the dry sound. For that kind of sounds, this can greatly enhance the rhythm. The widths can make the reverb more narrow, and it means the sound isn't going to be that huge and wide, but it will be more solid and focused instead. All the remaining plugins give a minor difference in the sound, so let me skip explaining them to show you that sound design trick. The trick is to use again in the reverb chain some of the effects I suggested earlier when processing the dry vocal. One of the examples would be use the shifter after the reverb. With these settings, only the reverb itself is going to be pitched by 5 semitones. More mixing is waiting for us. At first I will use a limiter and the whole channel processing to cut the peaks in the dry vocal, so I want to make the vocal sound flatter and to glue the reverb with the dry vocal as well. For that we can use even the simplest D16 Frontier limiter. The limiter has to react fast, so to get an aggressive limiting, the release time should be set to the lowest. All that's left is to tweak both threshold and output level knobs to dial the amount of compression and to make the average volume of the sound after compression as high as it was before. Some people like to use here an OTT compressor instead of a simple limiter, but due to variety of reasons, an OTT would be an overkill here. Write me a comment below on whether you would like me to make a video on when to not use OTT compression, and let's equalize the vocals now. I always start the equalization with a high-pass filter. Even though we have very little to non-low frequencies on the low-end spectrum, I will cut them out for a cleaner sound. I want the chops to be more sparkling and brighter. A good choice is to boost the area from around 9K for such a result. There is a bit of an excess noise that suddenly makes the vocals sound not clean. To remove it, I want to cut some frequencies from the range of 2K up to 5 kHz. Try placing a bell filter in different places and see what works best. The vocals sound very hollow, which means that some lower mids have to be cut. I have in mind a frequency range from 400 to 6 or 800 Hz. The last filter will make the vocals a bit more present in the mix. Another cool equalization trick suggested by one of my subscribers is to cut some mid or mid-high frequencies out of the sounds like kick drum or bass if vocals can't cut through the mix. These two equalizers correct the kick drum alone, and as you can see I did a lot of cuts in the range between 100 Hz and 1K where the lowest frequencies of a vocal sit. That's why when we play a vocal over such a kick, everything sounds nice. I will turn off now the kick drum's equalization and you will notice that the vocals are not as present as they were before. The kick drum has now too many mid frequencies that cover the vocals. Without cutting them, the mix will stay bloated. At last, some sidechain won't hurt. Adding a pumping effect to the vocals will greatly enhance the rhythm of the beat. So in the tone filter too, I modulate the vocals volume and draw a typical sidechain curve. The depth knob is used to blend the effect as if I was using a dry wet control. Now let's see how to do the same thing in FL Studio. This time I have prepared a vocal track straight out of some remix contest pack. It's already mixed and the quality is the highest, so I can get straight to the creative work. The thing is that these vocals are not synchronized with the beat. I will trim the beginning of the sample and play it along with the kick drum to see how much in sync these vocals are.
Would you let me inside your head?
It sounds like the difference is large, so we have to stretch the vocals. I right-click the clip icon and select Fit to Tempo. If you don't know the tempo of the acapella, I know the tempo because I googled the tempo of the original track, click the Type in BPM option and enter the original track BPM.
Would you let me inside your head? Would you let me?
If you can't find the original track's tempo, you can make FL Studio try to detect it. Since the kick drum plays faster than the vocals, I expect the vocals to be in the range of between 75 and 150 BPM, and I will select that option. FL Studio tells me the vocals are in 109 BPM tempo, but we already know this isn't the truth. So even though the vocals got stretched, they are still not in sync with the beat.
Would you let me inside your head? Would you let me?
If you both can't find the vocals BPM and can't synchronize the vocals with FL Studio Detect Tempo feature, your only hope is to right-click the channel icon once again, hit the channel settings option and tweak manually the time stretch knob until you synchronize the vocals. In Ableton project we were synchronizing the vocals before chopping them up. But I think that if we were to chop unsynchronized vocals, we would get a bit more unpredictable but still good results. Let's test it out. I will open the same vocal track in Slicex now. The middle down section is a part of Edison, a quite versatile audio editor inside of FL Studio. This editor has already loaded up some default markers that we will substitute soon with markers that chop the sample. Press Ctrl plus Shift plus Delete or use the Delete option from the Marker tab to clear the sample from existing markers. I will zoom in to find the beginning of the vocal and then select the silence to the left of it and hit Delete. I can also remove a large part of the vocals I definitely won't use for chopping in a similar way. To chop the sample, I can click the icon with a knife and marker icon. Now, the sample got chopped probably by transients. I want rhythmic cuts, so I right-click the icon and choose the medium grid slicing. The auto dump option is selected, so with every slicing operation, the MIDI clip with sequenced notes is automatically created.
Would you let me inside your head? Would you let me?
I want the chopped piece to be smaller, and to get that, sometimes you need to manually create more markers or place them in a different way. I select Snap to the Grid option and move the existing markers closer to each other. To create the remaining markers, I select a part of the vocal track and click M key to create remaining markers. I play the MIDI clip once again.
Would you let me inside?
And it seems like the MIDI notes should be repositioned. I click the manual dump button to update the MIDI clip.
Would you let me inside your head?
After chopping the vocals, we do have lots of clicks we would like to remove. In Edison section, I click the Tools menu, and in the Regions tab, I click both the Click in All Regions and the Click Out All Regions.
Would you let me inside your head?
It's a bit better, but we can improve that. All the markers, so the pieces of audio we have created, are controlled with articulators. That is a set of envelopes controlling the volume, panning and etc. By default, all the markers are controlled with the first articulator. To remove the clicks, we want to create a short fade-in for each marker. It means we only have to modify the volume envelope for the first articulator, because it controls all the markers. I enable the envelope and I manually add points to create a fade-in, and I increase the sustain too.
Would you let me inside your head?
The chops are ready now to be sequenced. Similarly as in Ableton, it's a matter of arranging the MIDI notes in an order you like. After spending a few minutes, this is what I got.
Would you
Let's see what we can change in the Slicex. At first we can increase or decrease the pitch of all chops using the master pitch control. Unfortunately, this changes the chops length too, and it might be problematic when pitching the chops up.
Would you
The chops can be reversed like in Ableton too. Select any region and press the reverse from the tools menu. This will reverse the selection, but the marker will get repositioned too. Don't create a new one, as the old marker is probably underneath another one. Markers can be modified on an individual level too. Pick any marker from the list under the region settings tab and, for example, adjust its pitch. The markers can be individually filtered too, but if I just enable the filter to the right and play the pattern, without proper adjustments the whole vocal will be low passed. That's because of the articulators. Right now we enabled a filter for the first articulator that by default controls all the regions. If you want to filter an individual region, switch the articulator sent near the filter label. This will make the 7th region use the filter from the second articulator. Now we can adjust the filter for a single chop. I recommend using lots of resonance here. Alright, after tweaking the regions and rhythm I have ended up with this sequence. I want to process the sound in a similar way as in Ableton, that is, I want the reverb to be on a separate channel to process the reverb differently than the dry sound. In FL Studio Mixer I have routed the vocal chop to the third channel. On the bottom, I will change the routing. I will stop sending the third channel's output to the master channel. Instead, I will send the output to the channel 4 and 5, where I will have a dry sound and a reverb sound separately. The output of channels 4 and 5, though, will be sent to master. As in Ableton, I will leave the dry channel untouched, but on the reverb one, I will use the Fruity Reverb 2 plugin. Of course, the first thing I do is turning the dry level down and increasing the wet level to 100%. I tweak the character of the reverb with size knob. If we turn it down, the vocal will sound as if it's played in a smaller room. What can make a reverb sound less smooth is turning down the diffusion. With values closer to 0, the reverb will seem more empty. The low cut and high cut remove low and high frequencies respectively out of the reverb. I will tweak them to make the reverb sound lighter. The last thing would be to improve the rhythm with pre-delay, like we did in Ableton, and to adjust the reverb length with decay. Let's make more use of that parallel processing to do something I haven't done in Ableton. I will distort the reverb. The second effect I will pick is the destructor. Turn off all the effects besides distortion, and for starters increase the drive control while turning down the output. Once that's done, we can preview all the distortion styles to pick something that suits the chops best. Now I will adjust precisely the amount of distortion and its character. The reverb can be low passed as well. In the end, I use the output to make the reverb after distortion equally loud as the reverb without it. Both dry and wet reverb sounds fall into the group processing that consists of similar effects we used in Ableton. So we begin with a limiter, after that the volume control comes, and right in the end I again add some sidechain compression. Let's play the whole beat and finish the vocal chop processing.